Start the introduction. Let's start with your introduction first. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this yet another masterclass of TiE University program being hosted by TiE Rajasthan. We today have with us Mr. Dhawal Jain. Dhawal is the co-founder of Dybo, as well as he is the CEO of the company. Dybo is a visual tech startup that he built out of his college dorm along with his friend Aman. Uh, I know Dhawal for last 2-3 years now, as he was part of our another program for startups. We call it TiE Rajasthan Smash Up, and he eventually went up to winning that when he was in his college days in BITS Pilani. So welcome, Dhawal. Let me just brief the audience about your company as well. So Dybo is a leading AI revolution company in India and is rapidly building the future of digital interaction. Dhawal's passion for solving problems started back when he was in school. That's also when he formed his first company. So he doesn't believe that there is a perfect way to live life or to build a company, but he is a big fan of originality. So that's a great thought, Dhawal, and I always appreciate your participation and commitment for TiE Rajasthan and for the younger generation. You always come up whenever we request you. I really sincerely appreciate your participation. And with this, I'll just open it up for you. So, audience, this session is about go-to-market strategy. Dhawal is a young entrepreneur. He himself is building a company, a global company which is funded as well. So, you will get to know a lot from Dhawal. So, please be interactive. Put your queries and questions in the chat box or otherwise in the Q&A box. We'll pick it up from there. And if you want to speak, just raise your hand. I'll allow you to speak as well because we are in a webinar mode. So with this, over to you, Dhawal. Please go on.
Awesome. Sounds good. So I hope everybody is doing well. One request to everybody is that, Arun, so they can put their messages in the chat, right?
Yep, they can.
So would request everybody to send a thumbs up in the chat so that I know you guys are alive and you're enjoying the content. If you have any questions during when I'm speaking, you can definitely post them and we'll try to cover those during the session itself. If not, then we'll take it up in the last part of the session, which is the Q&A. But one thing you must do is, keep sending thumbs up so that, because that's oxygen to me right now. That's the only way I know that you guys are present and you guys are listening. Cool. So on to go-to-market strategy. When I say this, I am not exaggerating at all. And in fact, I'm just, putting it down. Go-to-market strategy, I think, is the most important part of when you form a startup. There's nothing more important because see, as entrepreneurs, as young entrepreneurs, I know all of you might be, very thrilled by how Boat has been successful, how Apple has been successful, how Zara has been successful. So we all end up making great products, right? But and as young entrepreneurs, we often feel that, okay, making a great product is the challenge. That's not the challenge. Selling the great product is the challenge. And that is where go-to-market strategy comes in. Now, I cannot emphasize on it more. It's a startup success maker or a startup success killer. There is no other way to put it. It is that important. So it's essential that all the questions that you have, you definitely ask them so that you get them clarified and you don't face the problems that we as young entrepreneurs failed back in the day. Okay, so I am Dhawal Jain, as sir introduced. I'm the founder and CEO of Dybo. Jumping on to the go-to-market strategy. So just to give you a stat, there are only 1 out of 3 startups that go from raising seed to Series A. 66% startups shut down after they've raised seed funding. And back in those days, at the stage where you are, I always felt that raising funds was equivalent to meaning that, okay, now we are validated and now we are successful. That's not the case. Raising a seed fund is more about you, your personality, your product, your idea, your vision. But when you're raising Series A, which is post raising your seed round, everything is about how quickly can you acquire the market, how quickly can you get in revenue. And that is where go-to-market strategy comes in. So 80% of these failed startups are due to slow or no growth of their product. 100% of these 80% startups suffer from the same problem. Either they have a poor GTM or they have no GTM at all. So you can imagine how important it is. In a country where there are more than 1 million startups, 80% of those fail because of having a poor or no GTM, right? Now, how do you not fail, right? Let's break it down into terms of basic business. See, startup is a very fancy word that come up with these days, and everybody likes to say that they have a startup and this and that, and there are so many definitions of a startup floating around. At its core, startup is just like a business, okay? A business on steroids that probably making 10x more growth as compared to a business would in the same area. Startup is about disruption, right? And disruption comes in when your go-to-market strategy is strong. So in a simple terminology, if I were to put it, how not to fail, build a good business, right? What is good business? So you understand who your customer is, then you understand what their problem is, followed by making a product that solves their problem. And by product, I'm not just referring to a SaaS product or a physical product, it could be a service as well. So you create a product for them to solve their problem. And then the next step, by the following the common sense, would be to locate a cluster of these potential, customers who could use your product. Once you have located this cluster of potential customers, you draw their attention to the brand. You educate them about the brand. You spread awareness about the brand to them, and you tell them about your product. And then you sell them the product. And once you've done this, you just put it on a hyper mode and sell your product faster, right? So now 4 out of the 6 steps of making a business successful lie in the fact that they are a part of the GTM, right? Now, let's go on to the definition. What is a go-to-market strategy? A go-to-market strategy is an action plan. Understand it word by word, okay? It's an action plan that specifies how a company will reach its target customers, right? In the previous slide, we saw a cluster of potential customers. Then how you will reach out to them is that plan is go-to-market, right? And through this, you achieve a competitive advantage. Primarily, you have to answer 3 questions. First is, why are you launching this product? Like, what is the problem? Are there any other competitors solving it? Why are those competitors unable to, help the customer with their current problems? Then you answer, who is this product for? I mean, out of a huge set of customers who could potentially use it, which are the ones that will say first yes to you? Okay. And the third step is, how do you engage with them? How do you reach out to them? And then how do you convince them to buy? Okay. So understand one thing, whenever you're making a go-to-market strategy, there are a couple of things that you have to keep in mind. Now, since all of you are starting out, you're not looking at expanding your current business. You're looking at forming a business, at step 1. So the idea would be to find customers who will quickly say yes, right? And this is called soft selling, wherein you just have to tell them about the product. You don't have to tell them about their problem because they're facing the problem already. You don't have to look for customers for whom the problem is not huge enough, right? You only have to look for customers for those who have a huge problem with what you're solving, and they will quickly buy it, right? Now, why would they quickly buy it? There are a couple of parameters. One of them could be price, right? So the price needs to suit to your audience. If the price doesn't suit that audience, then you probably need to find another audience. So just to give you an example, in 2016, and I'm using BOAT again and again, not because I endorse it or anything at all, but solely because it has churned out a huge business out of the Indian geography itself, which a lot thought was not possible in the electronics market. Now in 2016, AirPods had come out. They were launched by Apple, which created a huge fascination for wireless earphones around the globe. At the same time, phone companies were discontinuing all their wired earphones from the packages itself. At the same time, there was no category that was serving to the price range that BOAT serves to. There was an ultra premium category, which was your Bose and AirPods. Then there was the second category, which was Sennheiser, and basically those AirPods in the 8 to 5K category, right? And below 5K, there was nobody in the market that had a huge brand. There were small companies selling small products locally, right? This is where they come in. Now, understand their go-to-market strategy. They're launching the product for customers who cannot afford earphones beyond 5,000 rupees. how they engaged with them and convinced them to buy it is that they got it endorsed by celebrities, and also they took out earphones so cheap as 299, so that students in their early life start buying it and begin to engage with the boat brand, right? So this is a simple example of how a boat planned its go-to-market strategy. Now, how is it different from marketing strategy? So you might say that, okay, some celebrity endorsing boat, or you taking out a lot of ads on TV is marketing. This is not go-to-market strategy. How it's different from marketing strategy is, in marketing strategy, you define who the company will go after and what it will offer to them. In go-to-market strategy, you define how will this happen? How will the company make it happen? So it's kind of a step-by-step plan to understand how will you enable all of this that you're planning, right? What are the core components of a go-to-market strategy? One is market definition, which is basically who are your customers, which markets are you targeting? Like, are you targeting India? Are you targeting US? Are you taking a bottoms-up approach? Are you taking a top-down approach, etc., etc.? Then within this target audience, who is your first customer? Which are the people who will first say yes to you, right? Then it comes down to the distribution model, which is how will your product or service be delivered to the customer? So just to give you an example, there are companies who manufacture a product, then sell it to let's say a wholesaler, who in turn, the wholesaler sells it to a retailer, and then customers buy it from the retailer, right? But now in the new era of D2C, there is this whole concept coming up wherein you directly manufacture it, and without any middlemen, you directly sell it to the customer through your website. Now this is called D2C, right? So this defines the distribution model of a brand, that how are you selling your products? There are so many ways to sell it. Fourth comes the product messaging and positioning. And I think in the 21st century, this is the most important thing that defines a brand. When you define your target audience, when you define a product for them and a price for them, then you come on to asking yourself, what is the message that I'm trying to put across? Because people in 21st century buy a product, not because the product is good, but because the message behind that product is good. And this is something that companies like Apple realized very early on. So now whenever you look at a Apple board or a Apple ad, it always talks about privacy, right? Even though it's an electronics brand that's selling mobiles, laptops, etc. And there is so much that they could have, marketed. There is so much in terms of speed, in terms of UI, in terms of graphics. They could have marketed so much. The one they chose, they boiled down to privacy, because that they realized that their customers, for them, the most important thing is privacy. And that is why you buy an Apple product, right? So that is what you have to figure out. What is the message behind the product, and how is it different from competitors? Because if you make the same product with the same message at the same price point, there is no way you or the competitor, either of you, can win, right? So it's important to find a market, understand what their requirement, and specifically tackle with that problem with your messaging, right? And that messaging does not necessarily have to be a problem solver like privacy. It could also be like Kingfisher, wherein you were just talking about a king life, right? Then comes down to price. This is again the most important part, not the most important part, but again, once you've boiled down your customers, once you've decided the messaging, it's important to understand that your price point needs to be right for you to be able to sell it to that category of customers in that particular geography, right? Yes, we'll come down to that part as well. Also, when you're posting questions, just one request is, don't post it as an anonymous attendee. It would be good if you can just specify your name, because some of these questions might not be answered right away. The discussions might go longer and we might have to take them over the email. So if you put in your name, it's easier for me to, get back to you on emails. Then we've talked a lot about go-to-market strategy and how important it is for a startup, and how defining moment it forms for a startup. Let's move on to how do you make this go-to-marketing strategy. So I've boiled it down in 7 small steps. Okay. The first step is that you define your ideal customer profile, right? What is an ideal customer profile or a ICP? ICP is basically, you can say it's like a resume of the customer who you think will buy from you, right? In an ideal world, if you have not gone behind the technology and if you've rather gone behind the problem, you would actually know this on day one, because you've seen the problem, or because you know somebody who has seen the problem. You know what in which category can you put that customer in, right? So for example, let's say if you were to talk about a product that you're only making for founders, right? So the ICP would essentially talk about, one, this is a founder of this sort of startup, it could be a tech startup, this is the problems they face, these are the key advantages that we have by selling to them, and this is the price that they would probably pay, right? This all you define in an ICP, which is also called the ideal customer profile. You solve for the following problems while making the go-to-marketing strategy as you define this. The customer size fits your solution, right? A lot of times what we do is we create a really complicated product for a very, very niche audience, and there is no growth beyond that audience. And this is a huge problem amongst people who are creating tech startups. Tech does not necessarily have to be very complex. It could be very simple, but solving for a larger customer base. So you need to understand that your customer size needs to fit with your solution to enable you to make a brand that, you know, in the future could be huge, even if it's not huge in year one or year two. Through this, you will also understand what is the pricing model that fits with that customer. So if it's X customer, the pricing model, let's say if you're selling earphones, could be $299. But if you change the customer profile to, let's say, people who own Mercedes and people who hang out with rich people, then the price point needs to be higher, right? And but at the same time, a lot of things need to be different. You cannot simply sell the same product at a higher value to a, you know, more elite audience. The third point would be, what are the customer pain points that are being solved very efficiently? By efficiently, you know, it needs to be emphasized more, because a lot of times we create products and the solution is so, you know, I mean, it's such a task that you cannot solve that problem efficiently anymore. If you're not able to solve something efficiently, you cannot solve it at scale. You cannot make a business that scales in the future, right? Coming down to step two, create a value matrix. A value matrix is similar to a competitor analysis. How it's different is that you talk about values instead of talking about simply pricing, etc. So through a value matrix, what you will be able to solve is that, one, you will know how you are different from your competitors, right? What person in a specific market, what is that category of person who will choose you over your competitor? And third, through this value matrix, it will be a lot easier for you to zero in on the messaging. What is the message that you want to send across? It will be absolutely easy for you to understand. If you understand the value matrix, it's easy to come up with a message that caters to that segment of the audience. Step three is you define a sales funnel and sales strategy. Don't get intimidated by these words. Sales funnel is basically, how do you discover a client? How do you take it to the next step, etc., etc. And finally, how do you close down the client, right? So for example, let's say if we talk about Zoom, right? So the sales funnel of Zoom looks like, okay, marketing plus marketing on social media plus word of mouth marketing. The next step is giving out freemiums, which is, you know, you get to access the product, but for additional features or longer duration of calls, you need to pay a premium price for it. So this is called a freemium strategy. You make them aware of the freemium, you give them the access to the product, they keep using it, and slowly, once their requirement grows, they pay for it and they turn into a customer. So this is a very simple sales strategy in sales funnel. And freemium these days is, I think, the most used sales strategy in the SaaS market. Through this, you will be able to understand what is the trend within the industry at that price point. See, price point and your target audience becomes a very, very integral part of your entire go-to-market strategy. So what is the trend? What are the other competitors doing in the industry at that price point, right? What is the expertise of your team? So let's say if there is a person in your team who is an expert with distribution through wholesalers, right? Now, since you have expertise on that channel, you would probably not want to go with a D2C channel if there was an option between choosing wholesalers and D2C, you would choose the wholesaler channel because you have more expertise on it. And this is where you can make your first product selling happen. And then because you define the sales funnel and sales strategy, right, there's a possibility of disruption. So 20 years ago, there was nothing as freemium, right? There were a couple of companies that were the first in their markets to launch freemiums, and that's how we know about it, right? And there will be a lot of disruptions in the future in the sales funnel and sales strategies of products, wherein you will get such unique advantages of using the product, and none of us know what they would look like. Probably one of it would be something that one of you would eventually make in the future. So it's important that once you define this, you see and understand, how can I disrupt this market? My competitors are doing it this way. Is there a way to change it a little bit and attract a larger set of customers, steal my competitors' customers? Okay. Step 4 is, how do you generate product demand? Now, in an ideal world, when you create a product, either you are facing the problem or somebody is facing the problem, and it's easy to locate the first 10 customers. From 10th onward to, let's say, 50th or 100th onward, to 50th or 100th customer, you need to get in one-to-one conversations with people around you whom you believe would buy your product, to be able to sell the product. Now, this has, of course, multiple benefits, like you get to hear the problems real time, you get to add more features because of those problems, etc. The main thing is, it's easy to expand to 50 or 100 customers. Post that, how do you generate product demand, right? Other than, because this needs to be automated now, otherwise, again, the scale gets affected. So for this, you will also solve, how much cash do you have available? Can you spend an extreme amount of money on, let's say, bringing in a celebrity when you don't have that kind of cash, right? 2, how much time do you have available? Can you really engage in a kiosk opening model if your team size is small, and would selling through your website be a lot easier and a lot more scalable, etc. And then, of course, the third is team's expertise and resources. So step 5 is developing a content marketing strategy. Content marketing, of course, happens to be the, content marketing basically brings context to your product. So a lot of people say content is the king. That's ideally not the case. Content is the queen. Context is the king, right? So through content marketing, you can develop context through which a lot of more people can relate to your brand. Step 6 would be choosing the right metrics to measure growth. Now, what happens is that we often come up with plans, and we start executing them without even defining what is it that we are trying to achieve. Saying more customers is not an answer to this question. How many more customers? See, okay, let's say, for example, you gather 1,000 emails, and your idea is to reach out to customers through email marketing, and you expect good responses to come in, and you expect more customers to come in. Now, if you have not defined what more responses and good responses or more customers is, then by the end of all your email marketing activity, you will not know whether you've been successful or not, because what you've done is you've executed something without knowing what you were looking for. So even if one more customer comes in, you might be like, oh, this is such a successful thing because one more customer came in, and that is more customers. No, probably not. You should have defined it as, okay, through this activity, I expect 10 customers to come in. If 10 customers come in, this is the right strategy. If not, then I have to move forward. And how do you get to this number is by understanding how much money are you spending in acquiring those 10 customers, and how much more time can you continue doing this activity without running out of cash. Step 7 would be plan for customer retention. Again, it's similar to saying a bird in hand is better than two in the bush. If you have a customer already, it's important that you retain them, because you don't have to spend money again and again to acquire them. Listen to their problems, work out a strategy through which you can retain more customers than your competitors do. So now, this is all skill, right? This is all a defined plan to execute. The secret or the hack in this executing a GTM is that you need to change it with time. This is very, very important because the GTM that, helped you go from 0 to 10 customers will not help you go from 10 to 50 customers. This is something I spoke of in the, a couple of minutes ago as well. Focus on the first 5 to 10 customers first. You probably would want to hand recruit them, meaning you won't want to talk to them personally and, convince them to buy it. When you are recruiting the first 10 customers, what I would recommend personally is that charge them for your product. Even if your product is not fully made, that's okay. If it's genuinely solving a problem of theirs, they will pay for it. If they're not paying for it, means you need to relook into the product that you're making because it is not big enough a problem. See, you find a problem, you get the solution, right? Now you make a basic prototype. A prototype is anything that just solves the problem, even if the experience is bad. Your more customers in the future would probably pay for the experience, but these customers who are facing the problem firsthand, and it's a huge problem for them, should pay for the product, even if the experience is not good, even if it's just helping them solve the problem, right? This I often refer to as the litmus test, wherein if you charge customers in the early days without, the app, let's say if you're making the app, the UI of the app is not great, the UX of the app is not great, but it's just solving their problem merely. If they're paying for it, means you're onto something that you could potentially create a lot of value. Talking about the next 40 to 90 customers, so these will be customers that you will have to first qualify through understanding that, okay, this customer or these set of customers match my first 5 customers. So you qualify these customers. You probably wouldn't talk to them yourself, or even if you're talking to them yourself, you wouldn't engage in such long conversations. But the reason you're qualifying them early on is so that you find customers who are not a pain. We in our early days worked with a couple of customers who took a lot of our time without actually, bringing in that amount of revenue. Instead, we could have spent that time first qualifying a set of customers who match with our product and then soft selling it to them without too many resources going on to one customer. If they're paying for, even if they're paying less for it, that's okay. But this is how you get to your next 40 to 90 customers. And post this, you keep changing these strategies. So it will change, it will differ from brand to brand. Again, what I'm talking about is, so when I say 5 to 10 customers, this probably is not, a right metric for if you're building a B2C app, because in that case, this number would be probably 1,000 to 2,000, etc. Then I've included some links in this PPT. So post this session, I'll be sending you this PPT. I think I'll forward it to Arun sir and he'll be able to help you with it. I would definitely recommend you to go through these links. So the first link is Next Strategy. So Next was a company that Steve Jobs made right before coming in back to Apple. In this video, he talks about what is the market that he's targeting and how he believes he can expand the market, right? And that time he was competing with companies like IBM, which were extremely large as compared to what they are right now. And he was trying to define a small niche market that would perfectly fit with his PC world, right? In the second video, it's a Y Combinator talk by Gustav. He talks about how to get your first early users and how then to replicate that success with other users. Then there's a talk by TK Kader, where he talks about what is a product-led growth versus a sales-led growth. Now, both of these are go-to-market strategies, so it's essential that you understand the difference between them. Then there's a talk by the VP of marketing at HubSpot, where he talks about how to, so the first product-led growth that TK Kader explains. In the second video, he explains how do you drive this growth? How do you implement it? Then there I also included marketing strategy, Boat's marketing strategy that is recorded by Think School. This is again a channel you must go through. So two channels that I would definitely recommend you to go through to understand how to acquire users, how to build GTM, and how to scale your business is one is Y Combinator and second is Think School. So that is all from my end for this seminar. Now we can start taking up questions. And once we're done with the questions, if any of you already have existing startups or ideas what we would recommend is put in those ideas, put in those, running businesses that you have, and we will try to quickly make a go-to marketing strategy so that others can understand how it works. Arun sir, is that good?
Super. We can go ahead with this plan. So we have a question from Nishant. He is asking, so if the product is for government, if the client is government, then what they should do, how they should go about it?
Correct. So now, again, the question comes down to, you cannot broadly say it's government. Are you targeting national governments of different countries, or are you targeting state government of a specific country? So I'm assuming you're talking about specific state governments of India. So what you would probably do is you would probably want to reach out to the, so you'll have to find out. See, selling to the, whenever you sell a product that's, that has a large ticket size, there is a lot of research that you need to do at your backend, right? So let's say if you want to sell it to a state government, let's say Karnataka, right? You will have to first boil it down to who are the people in the Karnataka government that can take a relevant decision regarding the implementation of the product or service that I want to bring into the government. Once you've narrowed it down to those, you need to reach out to them. Reaching out could be through LinkedIn, could be through email, whatever works for them and for you. And then you go and explain the product to them, right? So your go-to marketing strategy would be, one, identifying the key prospects in that particular, or actually your go-to marketing strategy would be identifying the state governments that can buy your product, identifying the prospects who can take decisions regarding that product, third, getting in touch with them, fourth, closing them. This would be a very simple go-to marketing strategy if you're building a product that's for the government.
All right. Dhawal, I have also received one question in personal chat with me. So they are asking, there is Kritika who's asking whether it should be, I mean, the question is basically, let me read it out for you. Whether the strategy for product and a service differ. So I think she wants to ask whether there will be a different GTM strategy for a product and a service. If you can just put some line on it.
So ideally it should. I mean, without more context, it's very hard to say. But ideally it should, because when you're talking about service, you manually want to, reach out to companies that can probably utilize the service, get in conversation with them, show them your past work, etc. And that's how go on to make a good service business. When you're talking about products, you want it to be more of an automated approach after you've, found a product market fit, and after you have probably given out to a couple of customers. What you want to do is now automate this process, right? Because you're not involved in the product anymore. The product can scale without you scaling your team or you scaling your budgets, which essentially means that during this automation, you want to talk to the customer as less as possible. Apart from collecting feedback, you don't want to get too much into it. Rather, what you want to do is you want them to discover your website or your channel of distribution, buy your product through that, and then start using the product by themselves. So of course, the strategy would definitely differ irrespective of whether you're a product or service. Even business to business differs.
Right. Some more questions in the chat box as well as in Q&A box. Do you want me to read that for you?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So there is a question from Siksha. How to go about researching a specific market if not enough data or information is available?
See, if you feel enough data or information is not available, you probably are researching wrong. I too, in my early days, a lot of times I felt like, oh, this particular thing is not available and it's a category creating product. So how do I research about it? Data is always available. We just need to refine our keywords. We will definitely find that data. When we started building AR products, when we started building the metaverse for augmented reality, metaverse was not a fancy word, right? We also did not know that we're building something, which in the future would be called augmented reality metaverse. However, we were trying to identify the market, through other aspects. So let's say if you're selling a solution X, which is a category creating product and it's an innovation and has never been done before, in that case, you would look for what is the why that they are currently using through which they're getting that work done. And you would research more on that. Through that, you would find out how many customers are there, multiply them with the pricing that you want to keep, you will get a rough tag, right? If your product or solution already exists, if there is a competitor, who is serving that particular market, enough data or information will definitely be available. The last approach that you would want to take, if nothing is available in your case, would be that you start speaking with these competitors. Something not very, highly regarded in the industry, but you could definitely reach out to these competitors and say that, hey, you don't have to tell them you're building the same product or you're building a similar product that would kill their market. You can probably say that, hey, I'm exploring a similar space. Would you want to get in touch and guide me through my journey? And a lot of people, would be willing to do that. So if it's an existing market, you will definitely find data. If it's not an existing market, you can take an alternative approach to see how are these customers solving their current problems right now. There are two strategies you might want to note them down to determine a market size, or because when you say researching a specific market, I am sure you're not trying to find the problem. You know the problem, you're trying to find the solution, or you're trying to identify how large the market is, right? In that case, you can also take a top-down approach or a bottoms-up approach. Both of these work really well to determine a market size, depending on what you're trying to sell.
All right. So the next question is from Abhishek Gupta. How he says that he is a startup where we open online merchandise stores for individuals, primarily graphic designers and influencers, so they can open a custom merch store on our website with their name and earn royalties. We print a product and ship them. What could be a GTM strategy for this?
Correct. So now, how do you find these graphic designers and influencers would be step one, because right. See, your go-to-market strategy, ideally, and if I were to, tell you something that's on the top of my mind, would be your customer is the one who is paying at the end, right? But these graphic designers, or because you're calling them influencers as well, right? They already have a community of their own. So your ideal, in an ideal world, you would use their community to sell first instead of spending a lot on marketing or Google ads or Instagram ads. So a good go-to-market strategy, like you've rightly used the word royalties, right? Increase those royalties. Don't just pay them for the designs that they've come up with. Also pay them for every customer that they bring in, right? So good go-to-market strategy. And always in your early days, always try to go as lean as possible. Even if that means that lesser number of customers would buy your product, even if that means that, you would probably not earn as much profit, it's okay. You get to learn more through building a lean product than you get to learn through, spending a lot of money and making that product. So let's say you approach these graphics. So first you identify a cluster of graphic designers. Could be colleges. These are people who often go on to being good graphic designers and influencers in the future. A lot of them become influencers, and by influencers, I'm just referring to people with over 10K followers. A lot of them become influencers during their college days itself, right? So you identify colleges in which you will find these graphic designers, launch a program over there that, okay, whoever makes the best shirt, we'll put it up on our store, and all the top 10 voted t-shirts would go on the store. Through this, you will gain a lot of traction, and you will create kind of a restricted community which everybody would want to enter. Then you can shortlist those 10 items, and then you ask these people to promote your products on their Instagrams, right? This could be a good GTM to at least find your first 1,000 customers in your case.
All right. So another question is from Mohit. How do we represent the GTM strategy in the pitch deck? Is it supposed to be with a live timeline or a list of what you will be willing to do?
Sorry, I was trying to find that question in the chat. Can you repeat it?
It's in the Q&A box.
Okay, got it. Right.
Okay, got it.
How do we represent the go-to-market strategy in the pitch deck? No, it's usually not a timeline. It's a step-by-step process, right? You cannot actually define a very strong timeline when you're making the pitch deck. The idea is to, of course, there needs to be, you can talk about broad timelines that, okay, in the next 3 weeks, you would probably reach out to the graphic designers, and in the next 3 weeks, you would shortlist the t-shirts, and in the next 3 weeks. But the go-to-market strategy that is there needs to be a step-by-step process. First, we do this, then we do this, then we do this, and then we do this. From finding a client or the client finding you till the end, till closing the sale, it needs to be like a step-by-step algorithm. I hope that answers your question, Mohit.
All right. Yep, there is a yes. Good.
I think Kritika has posted another question.
Okay.
Cater the customers on demographic basis, most importantly. See, I genuinely can see if you are again, I cannot genuinely help you without knowing the product itself, but let's say if you were talking about customers that you cater to on demographic basis, my ideal go-to-market strategy would be to find influencers who influence that particular demographic. And there are always local influencers, like build a partnership with them, ask them to bring in the clients. See, in the early days, don't focus on spending a lot on marketing. And this is where go-to-market strategy comes in place. You can have a good go-to-market strategy without actually spending a lot on marketing. And you can go lean and you cannot spend as much if you think of a smart go-to-market strategy.
Right. All right. Good. Any further questions? You can also speak if you want. I can just open up the floor for you. Just raise your hand and I'll allow you in to speak.
So I'll give you a quick example of how we at Dybo built our go-to-market strategy in the early days.
Great.
Now, our problem was, what you say is a soft sell or a hard yes, that yes, we want to buy your product and utilize it, right? These were the customers that we wanted to get to in the very early days. Now, we are a B2B SaaS company that initially was just working with furniture designers or furniture brands more than anything. Now imagine a furniture company that has employs more than 500 people. Who do you reach out to? How do you get in touch with the right stakeholder? How do you bring business from them? How do you build that credibility in the process? There's a lot of questions that come in the way. Do you print advertisements? Do you market on Instagram where most of your decision makers are not there? Do you spend 5,000 a day on LinkedIn ads? What do you exactly do? We did not have enough money to solve it through any of these ways. Instead, what we did was that there are photographers, and we basically build visual technologies for companies to present their products in a much better manner through augmented reality and 3D renderings, etc. So what we did was we reached out to photographers who primarily work with furniture companies, right? And we also reached out to 3D rendering companies who work with furniture companies. Now we told them that, hey, every client that you give to us, we will give you a 40% cut for the next 12 months on the subscription that comes in, right? And 40% of our subscription value is a lot of money. And for them to make money out of that client every month was impossible because photography and 3D rendering both are a one-time task. So they cannot make a lot of money out of it, right? In this case, even though they were our competitors, they agreed to join hands with us because through our distribution model, they could earn a lot more than they could through their own distribution model. So this is the go-to-market strategy that we implemented, right? The other way to implement a go-to-market strategy in our case could have been that instead of reaching out to furniture companies first, we could have reached out to upholstery companies, fabric companies that cater to these furniture companies, right? So through building a partnership chain, what we were trying to do is, because our product is highly priced and needs to have a lot of credibility before they adopt it, what we were trying to do is we were trying to break into relationships where credibility is already established. So for us, the problem was not selling the product because the product has a very clear-cut value. The problem was, identifying a person who already has credibility with the brand and selling it through them, right? So that was the go-to-market strategy that we took. This is just a very simple example to help you understand. You need to identify the correct problem that you're trying to solve with that go-to-market strategy, and then you boil it down to different solutions. Yes, so I think now everybody's chat is open as well. I think the mic is open as well. So you can start asking questions if you want to.
So Dhawal, I have a question for you.
Yeah,
So I understand that GTM is something which is different from a marketing strategy, right? So and ultimately GTM leads to product launch primarily. Yeah. So as I remember, your company name was earlier Hello World, right?
correct, correct.
And you renamed it to Dybo now. So you have to reinvent the entire cycle, or it's just a marketing that you need to take care of how it goes about.
See, so I mean, most of the customers that buy a product in at least the business space don't care about your name. So most of the people who were buying from us were buying because they had a conversation with Dhawal, or they had a conversation with one of their partners through which we were selling the product, right? So for us, rebranding the name was just to make our SEO easier, because Hello World again is an overpopulated name, wherein we were not able to build a good SEO even after 6 months. It wasn't done in order to make it more easy to pronounce. So that was more of a branding activity than a go to market strategy, right? But on the other hand, if you talk about a B2C brand like shadi.com, I think the best decision they have taken was the domain name, right? That itself could be step one of their go to market strategy, that buyer domain that customers remember forever. In our case, the remembrance of the name is not the issue. Building the credibility is, and that you do through SEO, etc., not through having a great name.
Correct. Nice, nice. So can we take up some case studies? Those you already have in-market product or service. If you can just give me a thumbs up in the chat box, we'll take up couple of stories, and I think we can just build up a GTM strategy right now for you with help from Dhaval. Anybody from the audience, if you have got any product or service which is there in the market, I can see some names which I know: Devang, Muskan, uh, Nishant. You asked some good questions. If you have got some thing to ask about your individual customized go-to-market strategy that you want to. So, okay, we have one. So Nishant is there. I'll allow you to talk for a couple of minutes. Then we will build up this thing. That's correct. Dhawan, that's how we should.
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah,
works.
yeah, yeah.
Also, Arun sir, is it okay if I take a 2 minutes break?
Yeah, yeah,
Just
fine,
need some
perfectly
water.
fine, perfectly fine. Please go ahead. Please go ahead. Abhishek, you raised hand, or Nishant, you raised? I just can't identify now. Abhishek, you are going to speak, or Nishant? All right, all right, all right. Nishant, you have the right to speak now. You can talk about your idea, your business, and we can take it up with Dhawan.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Sorry, I was on mute. Nishant, I can hear you. Just wait for a minute while Dhawan
Yes,
joins.
Nishant, I'm back. I can hear you.
Yeah, all right.
Yes, just as you said in the seminar, if we have something innovative idea, so in order to get the customers required, we need to find the influencers for the same. Is that true?
No, that's not
Just want
always
to,
the case. Finding influencers only happens when you're distributing to an audience where a lot of credibility is required. But trust me, if the problem is large enough and they don't have a efficient alternative solution as of now, you should not require an influencer to sell your product.
okay, thank you.
And guys, you can ask questions even if you don't have existing businesses that are running or anything, even if you have ideas. Like I, in your place, would definitely take up this opportunity just to ensure that, I have an idea and it's a quick way for me to design a GTM.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Nishant, you want to? Nishant, you want to speak again? Please go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Uh, mm, what what if our idea is there, but we haven't done the sampling of it? It's just an idea. It's just something we would like to work on and test on it, but there is no outcome yet for the idea. It's
Okay,
just
so
in
tell
the
me
mind.
yeah. So maybe let's talk about the idea right now instead of, referring it to as the idea in vague. Tell me more about your idea. What are you planning to make? And let's see what we can do in terms of the GTM.
I'm trying to like as oil and gas industry is getting uh, extinct very soon. I'm finding an alternative way to generate electricity power.
Okay. So right now, what you have is the problem. You've not even identified the solution. GTM comes after you have identified the solution, right? But let's say just to talk about the problem that you're doing. So there's this huge concept of decentralized energy that's floating around, in which what you do is instead of having a centralized power station, like right now, all of our electricity comes from a central power station, which powers the electricity in all of our houses, right? And they charge us for the electricity that they send to us. Right now, with blockchain coming in the picture, there's a concept of decentralized energy also coming in, which means that I can have solar panels on the top of my roof, and I could utilize all the energy from that solar panel. However, if there is a power cut, for the houses that did not have their own solar panel and they had a power cut, I can give them my energy and take money for it, right? So this is this concept called microgrids. Nishant, you should definitely look into it, and decentralized energy. Now, let's say you have decided that, okay, I'll start making microgrids in remote areas of Rajasthan, for example. The next step to that activity should be finding out where can you implement it first, right? So for example, you identify a remote village. Now your GTM, so your first step would be identifying the right influencer in that market, because again, in this process, government would be involved because you're questioning the existence of some of the largest energy companies in India, right? So you would probably find the right politician who influences that area, the sarpanch over there. Then you would go on to meet the sarpanch and explain him how your thing will change the entire way energy is distributed, etc. And then you would start installing these microgrids on the top of houses or on the top of mills, etc. Through this, you would probably be able to establish a business, right? Now, the GTM part of it was getting in touch with the right stakeholder, which was in your case the sarpanch, taking it to different houses through the sarpanch and establishing credibility over there. Because now, again, see, credibility again is required over here solely because you're changing them, changing the way they have always utilized electricity, or they have always, taken electricity. And on the other hand, you also need to have the right politician on board so as to be able to, have some safety in terms of deploying all your solutions, because decentralized energy is questioning a lot of things that have worked in the past in a certain way, and questioning the entire industry for that matter. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So Ashwarya asked, are there any alternatives for influencers to prove the credibility? So yes, a lot of branding definitely is the alternative. So if you look at companies like Apple, IBM, what do they do? They don't have any influencers as such on board. They don't hire influencers. Instead, what they do is they do so much branding of their product that it automatically becomes a legitimate company, right? But understand one thing: not every business requires credibility. So, for example, if you're selling let's say t-shirts or shampoos on the internet, you don't require credibility. What you rather require is making your product discoverable enough on all social media channels, and keeping the price point correct enough so that people, come in and buy your product. Credibility does not play as much role. Now, for example, if I'm talking to a food company, right, or I'm making a food that I can probably distribute through different restaurants during their in-dine experiences. When I'm talking to a cafe, the credibility will not come from the fact that I got in touch with them through an influencer. The credibility will come in place where they ask me, oh, is your food authorized or certified through some government entity or through some food regulator? If that is there, then I've built the credibility that was required for this process. If that's not there, then that becomes a problem, right? So understand what is it that you require in your sales channel and try to go lean on it, is what I would say. That is where I brought influencers on board, because sharing revenue is a lot more easier than spending money right now, right away, or then giving up your equity. Mitra has asked a question. What could be the GTM for an app that teaches young people or people with newfound financial responsibility how to manage their money? Oh, great. So in the fintech world, there are a lot of changes happen. In my opinion, the right way would be to, let's say if you want to go lean right now, the right way could be through, so there is a company called FamPay, if you have heard of it, right? FamPay is basically credit cards for teenagers or something of that sort. Now they have a huge community of youngsters who now have access to credit card and are spending it widely, and their parents are paying the bills for it, right? If you could somehow tap into that community, and that could be through joining their WhatsApp, Telegram chats, that could be through joining their social media, or regularly being available to answer all the questions on social media, etc. You can probably draw the attention of their community to your app, which essentially is an extension of their service. So they are providing the credit card, and you are telling them how to use this credit card without being irresponsible with it. So this could be one of the GTMs that you could take. Alternatively, you could also, so the idea for you is to locate these community of youngsters, teenagers who have access to cards, credit cards or debit cards, and now you want to tell them how to use it. So these clusters is what you have to find. And once you've found these clusters, you have to ensure that you gain enough attention of theirs. Now that could be through, keeping up free resources, like you could just simply prepare a quick deck on, 4 steps to financial freedom and distribute it for free to these students. Or one GTM could also be actually reaching out to colleges and hosting webinars or seminars in person. Through that way, you will be able to tap a large community. The effort is very small. Through a small collaboration and offering a free webinar, you get to tap a community of more than 1,000, 2,000 students. And also, since it's being organized through the college, you get enough credibility. And since you're not charging the college any money, they would be more than happy to let you organize something like that. What can be GTM for a company related to tours and travels? For tours and travels, I think social media works really well. Getting in touch with the right influencer. See, what the mistake that we do is that we always feel we're making something that's so great that you cannot keep anything substandard with it. So when we make a tours and travels, let's say if you're making an app, now what we do is we try to rope in the most widely the influencers that have the widest audience. But the problem with that is that they also charge a lot of money, right? Instead, what you can do is you can look out for influencers in some colleges that have 2,000 to 3,000 followers, right? Now, people with 2,000 to 3,000 followers usually cannot ask for money, and you can make them brand ambassadors of those colleges, right? And all the students who want to travel to some place through that college can get in touch with you through that person. So that person would be more than happy to promote your work because he gets social validation, but also he or she will not charge you for it because they don't have enough following, but enough following for you to at least start your business. And then later, of course, you could change it to hiring big influencers who charge a ton of money, but also have a huge community with them. People who are known in the travel world. And see, GTM, one part we are forgetting is that GTM is not just about the distribution, it's also about targeting the right audience, identifying the right audience. So I know of this company, I'm forgetting the name. It's based out of Rajasthan. What they essentially do is that they are a travel startup for women, right? So a lot of women in their 40s and 50s who are not working or housewives want to travel, but do not because they don't have enough network. Not everybody is into kitty parties, etc. So they don't have enough friends to be able to travel, and their families do not feel safe sending these women out for traveling. So what the startup does is this: it takes end-to-end responsibility of their safety, and collects a bunch of such women and takes them onto trips. Now for them, money is not the problem, right? So even if you ask, instead of, let's say, 30,000 rupees, even if you ask for 37,000 rupees, these women are ready to pay as long as they get the opportunity to explore a world with strangers by themselves. So finding the right audience and then finding the right influencer or the right distribution channel is a much better approach. I'm working on a job portal. So this question is by Ashwarya again. I'm working on a job portal type of idea, mainly focused on women who are trying to get back after a career break, where we also have a training process for a few positions for a few months under a subscription, after which we promise them a job. Okay, so Ashwarya, the real customer in your process, first you have to identify, are you catering to these women or are you catering to businesses, right? If you're catering to businesses, then your idea of working with these women should be to train them enough so that they can join these companies directly. So for example, if your customer is the business, you would ask business for specific requirements and specific eligibility criteria, and train these people to just be eligible for those criteria, and then ask them to sit into jobs. On the other hand, if your customer is the woman, right, then you would probably have a standard training process that they'll go through, and then one part of your team would identify startups that uh, hire people who want to restart their career. And on LinkedIn, on Internshala, on Naukri, all of these platforms now have a simple tick option wherein they ask, would you hire people who are restarting their career after a break? And it's mostly women for some reason. So and this tick that we do when we are sending out a job post, it appears on the job, right, that they are also open to hiring women who are restarting their career. So you can look out for these companies, get in touch with them, explain them your standardized process of training these women, give them a couple of candidates, let them filter it. If they like somebody, they shortlist it. If they don't like somebody, they do, you give them the next batch of candidates. So that ideally could be a good GTM. But for the GTM, you first need to identify who your customer is. Is it the woman or is it the business? Who is going to pay for your for your entire business?
All right. There is question in Q&A box as well. Dhawal.
Oh, okay. Yes. How do we represent the? Oh,
So that is the next one.
Yeah. Our idea is that we're going to digitalize local kirana store. So in our application, people can easily see which product is available in which shop. So what GTM should we use? Okay. So there is a app called Kirana only, I think. Try and refer to their entire market approach. They've gone huge. Companies in Africa are copying their business model right now. Companies in Australia are also copying their business model now. So this is something you can directly take it from a competitor. But let's say, assuming that you have done your due diligence in terms of how will you ensure that all the inventory is uploaded on your platform and it is all updated, and your app is perfectly working. My first approach to GTM would be sending out posters and putting out posters in societies, because through putting out posters in societies, you access a very large audience with minimum amount of money spent on posters. So that would be my approach. But again, I need to again know a little bit more about the idea, because how are you different from kirana.com is also something that you need to figure out.
All right. So, Dhawal, I don't see any further questions or not even a raise of hands. So, thanks for sharing all this information and knowledge that you have gathered throughout your career for past so many years. I think all the participants have gained a lot of information through this session, and I believe your presentation that I'll share with them will also further help them understand what's there. There is one more question, but I think that can be taken separately if you want to. It's up to you. You want to answer this question, or I mean,
Yeah, sure. I'll just type that down. Also, guys, what I'll do is I'll type in my email ID. So you can reach out to this email ID in case you have any questions after the session or whenever you come up with ideas, specific ideas. See, try to solve for things before the GTM, before you come to the GTM. So try to solve for finding the problem, finding the perfect solution. Don't let it be in the air, because thinking of a GTM of a product that's in the air is impossible. So once you have a specific idea, a specific problem, and a specific solution, would be more than happy to help you with your GTM. So this question is: we are going to release a platform for startup founders where they could type in urgent needs and challenges they're facing, and we will recommend a founder to them. Yeah, so that's a great GTM strategy, no doubt about it. There's a company called Lunchbox or Lunch Club. Definitely look into their business model and their GTM. So what they did was, in their GTM, they kept a a kind of invite only basis platform wherein young founders and established founders could come onto the platform. Now, since it was invite only, it meant that they are filtering out a lot of people who are not relevant, right? This is probably what you can also do. Keep it on an invite only basis. That too is a part of GTM strategy. So yeah, but for now, this sounds good.
all right. So finally, thanks again, Dhawal, and everyone who has been part of this interactive workshop today. Dhawal, this batch is of all university going students. So I believe having you with us today was most relevant part of this entire series of workshop that we have conducted for them. I think they can relate with your story and your journey. And definitely, as we go along, we might require your help again in such kind of programs that we conduct usually for our cohorts. So thank you once again, and thank you once again, everyone, for being part of this the workshop today. If you have anything in your mind that you want to ask, you are not asked today, you can reach out to me or Dhawal. I can also share the questions and queries ahead with Dhawal, and he will be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thanks, Dhawal, once again. Take
Thank you
care.
so much, sir. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody, for your time. Have a good day.
Bye. Bye.